Welcome to the Fitness Entrepreneur Expert Coaching Sessions. In these videos, I coach the best of the best in the fitness industry through their biggest challenges. In today's episode, I am joined by none other than the legendary James Smith. James has gone from being a personal trainer on the gym floor to building a multi-million-pound online fitness business. He gets to travel the world and do what he loves. He gets to speak. He runs a low-ticket coaching business, speaks at events, and also does a ton of other things with brand deals and sponsorships and other products that he is now investing his time into, notably Newtonic, which is his brand new energy drink. He has built an incredible channel and marketing distribution platform that allows him to speak to millions of people every single day. Now, I'm going to be coaching him through a big challenge, and I just want to break it down for you, first and foremost, what it actually takes to build a really successful fitness business, and then zone in on the area that we're going to be coaching on. And as I go through this model, I want you to realize that one, this is the thinking behind looking at growing a business. And two, if you go through this model and you actually get your own business and put it up against this, look at the areas that you're struggling with the most. And those are the areas that you need to focus on, because those are the constraints in your business that hold you back from growth. And the goal of growing a business is to identify the areas that aren't great, remove the constraint, whether that's a limiting belief, whether that's a lack of skill set, whether that's a person, whether that's a strategy, and ultimately replace it. In this video today, I'm going to be helping James with delegation, building his team, and most importantly, creating freedom for himself so that he can do the stuff that he loves, enjoy his family, he's got a kid on the way, and ultimately put himself in the strongest position to grow his business. Guys, I'm here with the legendary James Smith. James, tell us what kind of clients you coach and what's the biggest challenge in business. Let's work through it.
So I've got several businesses in B2B and B2C, but a lot of the times with marketing, even like operations, or just even I've thought about hiring a CEO sometimes so I can just do my thing. Whenever I've hired someone, I've always felt let down, frustrated. Although I maybe could consider myself very competent, maybe my expectations too high, maybe I'm a very poor leader. It's weird to be the boss of two businesses and think, do I need someone to come in and run the business? I've definitely struggled with expanding into a team, delegating and giving on responsibilities. Whereas instead of training them up, I feel the frustrations just take it on myself and let them leave. And that's definitely a trait that I struggle with.
Yeah. So a couple of things you need to consider. Remember, the first and original goal of why you set up a business was to have freedom and flexibility. And if everything relies on you, you remove those options. So I always say to people, the strength of a leader is the weakness in a business that hasn't got a team. All right. So if you look at your strengths, they're diluted whenever you're spread thin. If you're wearing multiple hats and trying to do everything, the business is solely dependent on your mood, your energy, and quite frankly, what's going on in your day to day. So you actually need to have that team in place to protect you and to provide you with bandwidth. And you will only grow to the level of your capacity. And you're human. You can't literally operate like a robot. So installing these team members is critical. And if I said to you, all right, if you were to stop working in your business, how confident would you be that your business can grow, provide value to your customers, and make money without you needing to be there every single day? And if you were to score that on a scale of confident, not so confident, what would it kind of be? Where would it be sitting? And then we'll unpack it.
Yeah, it wouldn't be looking good. Because if it was that, I probably would have put someone in that position already. And I feel like I've definitely got insecurities that if I leave that part of the business, that it's going to suffer. And I think that's definitely my own insecurities, that you're obviously going to have a bit of a lull when you've been doing it your whole time and you want to step back and get someone else in. And it's just managing that kind of that lull. And yeah, it's one of those things where it would be, you just see a decline on the graphs.
Yeah.
It wouldn't look good.
You got to realize that your whole identity, all your revenue has been based off your effort to date. And when you go to hand that over to somebody else, you're technically giving them control over your revenue. And that's where the insecurity creeps in of nobody else is going to care as much as me. Nobody else is going to understand, and nobody else is going to do as good a job as me. And there's this myth that goes around about hiring A players in business. It's very hard to find an A player that's ran and scaled a James Smith business before. So like I always say, you've got to find those people that are a cultural fit, that have got the basic skills, and then you've got to build and mentor them. And one thing that I always ask CEOs is, do you spend more time training your clients or more time training your team? And 9 times out of 10, they spend more time focusing on the client side of things, the marketing side of things, than actually building their team out. So I want to kind of go through and unpack here some of the core elements on how you actually find those team members, mentor those team members, and manage them, and ultimately get them to get a result. So I'm going to share screen here.
A quick one as well with this, which I'm quite interested in, is I'm very good at this when it's giving equity of the business or sharing a business with someone. So like if I've got a business partner or someone that's got skin in the game, I think that's a lot easier for me because I know that, oh, if sales are shit next week, that's affecting your pay slip as well.
Correct.
However,
they wake up in the morning incentivized to figure out and decide what needs to be done. So it takes that thinking away from you. And the growth of your business is in direct correlation to the quality of thinking and decisions that are made outside of you. Because if you have to think and decide all the time, again, life gets in the way. Business firefighting gets in the way. Your bandwidth goes down. So if you've got an incentivized partner in the business that's got a profit share or equity, it's technically their business too. So they're bringing a superpower, you're bringing a superpower. And what makes it work is when they are essentially opposites and they integrate together and come together as one. That's very powerful. But when you actually have a business on your own, or you're a sole directorship, or even if you're in a partnership and you've got these roles that you don't want to do anymore, you know you aren't the best at, but you find yourself still doing them out of habit, that's where the problem lies, because you've then got this lag of putting somebody in there. They don't know the culture, they don't know what to do, and there's a risk in that time period of getting them onboarded, getting to see what they can do. And of course, everybody comes in, promises the moon, and delivers absolutely, the opposite. So it's important to create that expectation and get that dialed in.
How do I incentivize staff? Because you float like a really good salary, but then you get burnt by the people who you're like,
let's unpack this, right? So if I said to you, who's your favorite CEO?
Do you know what? I couldn't even tell you.
Like, who do you look up to in business?
I would say that I don't know their company structure, and this is definitely something that I am kind of blind to. I don't really know how their structures work, or this could be probably why I'm struggling to be inspired by a good structure, because I don't really know.
Okay, well, let's just pick who do you look up to? Like, who's built the beast of a business that that you look up to, that you would like is savvy, you would always confident in the advice that they give you, you like the way they operate, you like what they've built. Like, just even think of somebody.
This is where it gets tough, right? Because my network is another thing that I struggle with, right? So I don't have people I can reach out to. I seem to be the one where I'm very forward, giving people advice, telling them what systems to implement, marketing side of things, do this with doing my marketing camp. And maybe this is me just being big-headed.
Let's think a little bit bigger, right? I'm going to pick a name. Let's say Al Barrett, right? Obviously built Grenade, sold Grenade for whatever, 200 million to Cadbury's or whatever it was, built it from the ground up, die hard from the gym floor as a personal trainer, and now owns a serious wedge in his bank account and lives the life that he wants, but has built the full team, has had British Growth Fund, just had a lot of success with the company, right? So here's what I want you to look at. If he came into your business right now and was to open up, look at your bank balance, your structure, how you behave, what you do on a daily basis. If he came into your business, what areas of the business do you think he would immediately fix up? That's essentially the first question I want to ask you. And anybody watching this, think of your favorite CEO. If they were to come into your business, peep under the hood, what would they do? Like, what are the first areas that they would fix? Like, I just want to hear off the top of your head what you think he would fix.
Marketing. I would say it would be like marketing delegation. Because at the moment, my business partner and I are technically, he's CFO, COO, and I'm CMO. So that's not our titles. That's just our responsibilities.
All right. Well, let me break this down. There's two big cancers in a business: money and time. Money not being spent appropriately on the right things, and time, projects not being met. And ultimately what makes that happen is team. So if I look through the lens of, let's just say, a 90-day CEO plan, and we look at three metrics: the money that is in the business, the time that you spend doing things, and the team that's ultimately there. If we were to look through the lens of what we need to stop, what we need to start, what we need to keep, if we were to focus on money, I want you to think, right, what do I need to stop spending money on inside the business that's not bringing a return? Now, that might be a current team member, that might be a current piece of software, that might be some kind of expense to the business that isn't yielding. Where do you need to start spending money? And where do you need to keep spending money? Like, what are the 1 to 3 things inside those categories? Time. What do you need to stop doing that, you realize you stop things in the back of your mind where you're saying, this is a waste of my time. This is pulling me away. This is distracting. Or when you start to secretly resent things. Okay. When you start to secretly resent things and hoping things cancel, that's a very good indicator that it isn't aligned with the best use of your time or your values. And the reality is you're not going to do it well. What do you need to start doing? What do you need to keep doing? And then team, who needs to stop doing what they're doing? What needs to start? What kind of roles need to start? And who needs to keep rocking and rolling? So this kind of 90-day CEO plan is just a very good kind of lens to kind of look at how you're spending time and how the company is operating. And let's just say if your favorite CEO was to come in and apply this, you're going to actually walk away with things you need to stop, start, and keep. All right. So would you be happy enough just to blink down money wise? What do we got to stop?
See, this is something where we've actually been quite good this year. We've not been too bad with our spending. I think it would be the start part would be proper adverts. So we're a very organic business.
Yep.
And I think that's where the resentment can come from, because I feel that, one, I need to do a lot of the marketing myself. Two,
Yep.
a lot of it is organic. I know that paid advertising is it's a difficult landscape at the moment. Everyone seems to think you spend 1,000, you get 1,500 back, but
No.
there's teams that, Facebook ads is a flipping art form.
Yep.
And as far as keep, it would still be the coaching. The coaches we have are critical to the business. And although we spent about £500,000 on coaching last year, without it, there would be no business. And people can look at our P&L and go, Jesus Christ, if you got rid of your coaches, you'd be making a lot more money, but we could also have no clients.
Yeah, 100%. You're totally right with organic. It's quite reliant on you. You need to produce the content. You're the face, you're the jazz hands. And the minute that stops, essentially the revenue stops. Paid media forces that message into the newsfeed 24 hours a day, which means it's omnipresent. But the challenge of that is it's spending money every minute of every day. It requires proper tracking. It requires proper tweaking. And ultimately, it requires somebody to watch that. And, I always say to individuals that are, beginning paid ads or running paid ads, you are best having that in-house because, if you're going to be spending £500 a day, £200 a day, £1,000 a day, or whatever it is, that can creep up quite a bill. And if something's wrong, a link's broken, or the advert is fatigued, it requires you to change. Otherwise, it's going to leak cash. So if I said time, what do you need to stop doing?
Overlooking sales copy on website, landing pages, even just things like user interface, flow. My business partner is fantastic with coding, developers, payroll, HR, KPIs with the coaches. But then sometimes we just get little things like that get overlooked, and I don't find it until they're already published. And I see it on a web page, and I'm like, how the fuck did this go out?
Yeah.
Why have we got that copy there? Who picked that? Sometimes the developer will populate a text form and we'll go to launch without anyone actually overseeing it. But then sometimes I think I could be out there making us content or adverts. Why am I nitpicking through stuff? So probably to stop that,
Well, you have to bear in mind that, if it's not your voice and it's somebody else's voice, it will never sound like you and it will never feel natural. And I think one of the best uses of your time is that voice and creating that voice. So if I said to you, if there was only 1 or 2 things you could do in the business, I definitely feel that the messaging, creating that content would definitely be one of them. And again, we can certainly leverage that on paid media, but it is actually a good use of your time to proofread and do things like that, because I personally feel it's aligned with where you want the business to go versus somebody else writing it, you looking at it and going, that's off. But the problem is if you're doing a lot of other stuff on top of that, it can feel like an inconvenience and it can feel like it's beneath you. Does that make sense? So I think there is an element there where there is a bit of quality control from James Smith, and that is probably something that you've got to systematize, as in every week you spend 1 hour proofreading certain key elements that are live, and that you then feed that feedback back and you create some form of manual or blueprint. Do this, don't do this, never do this, etc. And you create that kind of Bible or blueprint for a copywriter to eventually take off. Everybody has this dream of somebody coming along, doing their copywriting, and they never have to write again because writing's hard. And, some of the best names in the game, if you even look at the Alex Hormozis or anything like that, they all write their copy for their reels. They all, and their carousel posts. Like a lot of those are written in phone and then just stored because it's their voice. That's why it sounds so good. So I would probably question that proofreading piece and probably turn that into, is 1 hour of my time a week doing this a high ROI for the business in terms of, does it make me feel better? Does it make me feel more confident? And does it help drive revenue and sales? I would probably say yes. Team wise, what have you got to start? What do you think?
Do you have an assistant?
Yes.
See, this is something that I've been umming and ahhing about for a while because, sometimes I'll miss something in Slack. I'll miss something, that's an email. Oh, and even traveling the other day, Lane Norton was like, oh, my assistant just sent me my flight ticket. And I was like,
Yeah.
I should probably start delegating basic stuff. But then this is that thing that I'm like, what if I delegate someone to book a flight for me to save 10 minutes and then they get the wrong date? Or
Yeah.
they sit me in the fucking middle of two people.
Look, if you don't have an assistant, you are one. And I suppose if I
Ooh,
was to
I
say,
like that. I like that.
if I was to say to you, what does the assistant do for me? My assistant's actually my wife, right? And my wife books my flights. I haven't booked a flight I can't remember. I haven't booked a hotel since I can remember. I haven't booked parking. She keeps on top of receipts. She keeps on top of all the simple stuff that I don't want to do, the little 10 minutes here, the little 5 minutes there. And I always use this example. Have you ever been late for something before?
I'm usually pretty good.
Okay. So, when you're late, and sometimes you're late because you took an extra 10 minutes to sit down and flick on your phone, or an extra 5 minutes to do your hair or whatever it is. And then you get to the thing and you realize I really could have valued from that additional 5 minutes right now. I'm 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, I'm under pressure, etc. Think of those flights, think of those little organizational bits and pieces. They accumulate, and over time, they accumulate into a month. They accumulate into a lot of revenue. They accumulate into a lot of time that you could have spent driving revenue, building relationships, or enjoying rest. Rest is just as important as also making revenue, because the more rested you are, the more creative you're going to be. So I think it's really important to look at building a playbook for James Smith around the key components that you don't want to do. Travel. What are the 5 to 10 commandments around travel? I only travel X. I only like sitting between Y. If Y isn't available, here are the secondary and tertiary options. Create that playbook. And here's the thing, you actually have to take time to create that stuff in order to create future space and time for yourself whenever you delegate it. And if that isn't clearly written down, it's not going to be communicated. It's only going to be communicated off the cuff. And this is where I feel that you're making a mistake, is that when things are off the cuff, you kind of feel, I've gone by my word, I've said it, but it's actually not down on paper. It's not written. Somebody can't refer to it, and they're likely going to forget, or they're going to get complacent with the details. So this is a playbook that you should be building around your life. And to be honest, let's be real. It would take you an hour to build. And it's that
Yeah,
one
this is
hour that would buy you back 5, 10, 15 hours of jujitsu time, time with your kid, time with your dog. And I suppose for me, one thing that I always say to entrepreneurs, if you're always walking around with a tight, compressed level of thinking because you've got 101 things to do, your central nervous system's wired all the time. And that's where you then start creeping into this, I've got to feel busy to feel safe. And you have to start decommissioning your system over time by delegating and putting things out to other people that can do these things for you. It feels lazy, it feels unnatural, but it's something you've got to train your system to get good at. And the reality is there are no clear instructions there for anyone to do it properly. And whenever you're having meetings with your team, and I'm going to go into that in a minute, the meetings that you have and the touch points on a one-to-one level are almost like mini mentoring sessions on how we can keep doing things better, what little things went well, what things didn't go well. And the purpose of those meetings is to actually develop those team members with every meeting. So every time I have a team meeting at 10:30 this morning, and one conversation we're going to have is around a particular issue on how something was done before last week, and I want to fix it because I didn't like the way it was done. And the purpose of that is to change two things. The first thing that you need to bear in mind when you're changing any kind of team member is the beliefs around something and then the actions. So everybody starts to focus on the actions first, and they don't even talk about the beliefs. So let's just say it comes to flight booking, right? And you don't like sitting beside, I don't know, you don't like sitting in the middle of the plane or the back. You always want to sit at the front. You don't just say, I always like to sit at the front. A better thing to say is, hey, I like to get on the plane and not worry about moving down the middle of it, trying to find a space for my bag, because it takes up valuable time and space that I can be using to create content, check in with the team, and drive revenue for the business, which is good for all of us and the brand and the long-term safety of all of our roles and reputation. So I like to be able to just get on a plane and just go straight to business. That's why I like to sit at the front, because it minimizes at least 10 to 15 minutes of standing and figuring things out. And by the time I'm sitting down, I'm frustrated and I need a breath and I need a water and I just want to put on Spotify. It alters my mood radically. That may sound a little bit extra, but if your VA can understand that belief and the reason why you need it to happen and the benefit, then they're much more likely to follow through with it. Does that make sense? So you can apply that
Yeah.
to any kind of component. A coach, we don't speak to clients this way because clients might think or will think, and as a result, they won't. So instead, you have to make them think like, in order to do that, that's why you need to do these action steps. So that all comes part and parcel with just building, managing, and mentoring. So if I said, I'm definitely going to say, in terms of time, I'm going to say start. I'm just going to say grooming your role and starting to look at the stuff that you can start delegating off your plate. I think you should create a little note section in your phone, and for a period of 2 weeks, just write into it the stuff that you don't like doing or don't want to do anymore, or isn't a good use of your time, and really just document up a series of things. I think you also as well need to create a playbook for your life. And this playbook could be around your travel, could be around how you want your house tidied. Even if somebody's going to be looking after your dog, James, you got a system for it, and you just go, here, there's a system, plug and play, rather than telling people or reminding people, because it goes in one ear, out the other. Content wise, I think keep producing that. I think that's a good use of your time. Anything else you think you should keep?
Just downtime. So I get like
Yep.
my training in every day. I do the content every day. I also, mandatory most days, will just play an hour of PlayStation 5 for my mates. Like, and that makes working in the evening so much better. Like I see with you out tonight, I have a call at 6. Some people go, oh, I started work at 6 a.m. That's a bit late. And I go, no, train for an hour, did jiu-jitsu for an hour, play
Yep.
PlayStation for an hour. And it's that downtime that makes the other time feel so much more effortless. Whereas I've definitely, tried to not have downtime. And then in the evenings, you just end up working the whole way on your phone, watching TV anyway.
Yeah.
So it's, it's
100%.
good to have that.
100%. Just called personal boundaries. Team wise, if we said stop, start, keep, let's go quickly on that. What do you think?
Stop avoiding hiring.
Yep. What else? We've got to start.
I would say start thinking of things that I want to delegate.
Yeah. So again, grooming your role, you just going through it. And I always say to people, this is a common thing that's come up here, is this grooming your role piece. I always say to people when it comes to hiring, 3 lists. One that's frustrating stuff that's okay, and stuff that's fascinating. Hopefully I've spelled that right. Anything that's on this list is something that is a role for somebody. The next hire is everything that's on this list. And you only want to focus on the stuff that's on the fascinating list. And you build your life around that. And that's ultimately what's going to allow you to grow and thrive and actually enjoy business. Because a lot of the reasons why people don't grow in business is because they build this subconscious resistance to the stuff that they're doing. And they know if they grow, they're going to have to surrender their current lifestyle. They're going to have to give up something. So typically, whenever we look at growing a business, people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of what they've got to give up. So let's say you want to double your business, triple your business. People go, well, I'm going to have to, my avocado, like breakfast Tuesdays, my jiu-jitsu Wednesdays, all that's going to go out the window. And they tell themselves that they're going to have to give it up because they've got more stress and more work. And that only comes when they haven't got the correct team in place to be able to take that workload off. So, these are important things to consider for growth. Keep, I'm sure there's some team members that are doing some great jobs, right?
Partners, managers, and like I do get frustrated when people are like, oh, why'd you give half your business to this person? I'm like, well, because I wanted a partner in that. I wanted even with the drink, stuff like that. You want other people that have skin in the game, because then
100%.
it shares that stress.
Well, you're leveraging their thinking, right? So that's like a 90-day CEO plan to think of. And I think the most important thing that's standing out here is you actually need to sit down for an hour to 3 hours and actually just map out what you don't want to do anymore and get explicit on that. And the purpose of every team member that you bring into your business is to create value for the company. They shouldn't be coming into the company and ultimately sit there as a liability. Do you ever hear the entrepreneurs saying, don't set up a business because all you'll do is just end up paying bills and paying wages, and that's the only thing you'll end up doing? That's a really good example of somebody that has got team members that aren't providing value for the company. And if you look at the concept of what a team is for, their goal is to create company value, and your goal is essentially to manage or that of any of your partners. So the company value needs to be greater than the management. If you look at going through that list of frustrating, okay, and fascinating, you're going to be amazed with the stuff that you come up with. And then you've got to build that. And, like I always say to people, when you're building this rollout, take a list of this stuff down, because once you get those 3 lists dialed in, here's how you need to build out literally the role, as in what it looks like on paper. 2, how do you build out the communication cycles, as in when you communicate? And 3, how do you build out the compensation, the KPIs, and all that kind of stuff, right? So if I said to you, break these down, once you've done your lists, get very, very clear on the title of the role. Number 2, get clear on what it feels like for James Smith to be successful at the role. So for example, let's just say you've written out your list and there's a series of things that you're doing right now, like even in your booking flights, travel, accommodation. Let's go with the VAs kind of thing. What would it feel like to be successful at the role? James Smith never needs to worry about travel. James Smith never needs to lift a finger to do this or that. And he feels totally free and taken care of. And you can even put some quirky language in there. Like it's almost like you're his ma, right? Or you're like, his big brother, or, something like that, where they're looking out for you. James never has to second guess where he's staying. James has always got a clear plan, X, Y, and Z, and he's always got a bed to sleep in at night with lavender by the side. I don't know, whatever, right? You make it explicitly clear. Then the key results. What is the key result for that particular role? Every team member in the business needs to have a number to be accountable to. And I always say in marketing, it's the amount of sales opportunities or leads. In customer success, it's going to be client retention or churn, keeping it below a certain number. For the likes of a VA, I should never have to go into my inbox for longer than 30 minutes a week. So these are examples of how to keep people accountable. You create the number, that keeps them accountable, and then they know how you want to feel. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make in hiring, is that they create this like ultra corporate checklist of things that need to be done, and it's worded in a way it's just not English, even though it is English. And there isn't the core essence of how the founder wants to feel, right? If you hire a coach, how do you want it to feel? I want to know that all my clients are taken care of and you'll go the extra mile to help them get the results of their life. I don't want to be caught in the weeds doing check-ins and figuring out calories. I want to be focused on creating the most amount of opportunity for my team of coaches that, 1, are committed to excellence, 2, are willing to call out BS in the clients, and 3, are willing to suggest ideas on how we can improve. I should never have to check in with a client ever, and there's nothing wrong with that, because, as a CEO or founder of the business, you're one of the greatest sources of value for the business. You're the one putting fuel into it. And the team members, if they know in the back of their head, I know I'm being successful when James feels like this. That is such a cool, just undercurrent theme that they can ride with. So you've got what it feels like. You've got a key result. You can add in things like the purpose and the why behind the role. I think that's very important, because team members will not necessarily know your internal compass. And if you look at the 3 kind of crusades, there's the revolutionary fight, which I kind of feel that you're on. Like, everybody says do this, but it's actually this. There's the underdog fight, which is kind of like, we're underestimated X, Y, and Z, but we're going to prove them wrong. Then there's the ally fight. So I think you're on the revolutionary phase of putting out a message there that's very polarizing to the typical way of approaching fat loss. And when they know that they're like aligned with that kind of cultural value, that'll really help glue everything together. Culture is like the invisible glue that holds the team together. You know, the kind of stuff when it's Friday night at 9 o'clock and a team member does something for you and wows, that's culture. Or the team member challenges you and go, James, I don't think that was your best performance on stage. You forgot about this and this. Is everything okay? That's culture. When you haven't got that, then it kind of is just like very, you know, disjointed. Daily, weekly, and monthly checklist of actions. I don't think there's any way to build out a role than to reverse engineer it and go, what would you do daily? What would you do weekly? What would you do monthly? So that you can at least dump out of your head what you don't want to do anymore. So check in with this, make sure this is that, make sure this is that. And again, the reason why I like checklists like that is because checklists are process and processes give you freedom. You can be all airy fairy and you can be loose and whatever, but when you're trying to grow a thing and you're trying to build a beast, the margin for error and risk and the ability to hold all that in your head is just hard. And why make your life difficult? Then your communication cycle. When do you check in? When do you have a weekly, kind of back and forth? That's very important. Deliverables, what kind of reports that you need, what kind of updates you need. So for example, if it's a VA, let me know what emails I need to reply to by 12 p.m. sharp every single day. Build that around your routine. Create that expectation. Any necessary skills and experience, and then pay. Pay is one that we could open up and talk about for an hour, but long story short, the more experience somebody has and the more skill they have, the more you're going to pay them. Why? Because they come with it pre-built. If they don't come with pre-built experience and skill, then you're actually taking a risk on in the business. And if you're going to be mentoring them and training them up on a skill, so for example, if you bring a coach into your business and they're a junior coach and you're going to train them on how to coach, you're going to train them on marketing, you're going to train them on sales, you're actually adding value to that person, which makes them more valuable to the marketplace, which means that they're actually a flight risk. So you've actually got to incorporate that risk that you're taking to train them up and factor that into the pay. So bare basics of payment. What is the base pay? What is the base amount that they're going to be getting? And are you going to incentivize them for the number? So for example, coaches, if churn is below X per month, then you're going to unlock a bonus. If it's somebody more senior and managerial, then you might also want to have in a base. And again, the key number, if you want to do an additional project, there's an additional amount of capital here available if you optionally want to decide to do something. And the beautiful thing about those is that, hey, what can you do this month to create value for the company? Optional project, 500 quid, $1,000 or whatever it is. If you complete it, they then come up with their own idea and they can fail or they can succeed at it, which is beautiful. It creates great feedback. So that there's multiple ways to pay people, but those are the components of creating a role. Write the 3 lists, get all the frustrating stuff down. What does it feel like for James to be successful at the role? What's our cause? What's our why? So that they understand your internal compass. What's the key result? What's the one number or the one metric? What are the daily, weekly, monthly kind of activities and checklists? What's the communication cycle, i.e. when do we check in? What 3 skills, 4 skills, whatever it is you need to have? What kind of experience you need to have? And then also pay. What is the base? And if there is an incentive, what is it? What kind of activity or behavior do you want to incentivize? That's not going to be in every role, but it's useful to have in some roles. Incentive, commission and things like that, predominantly sales roles. The more money salespeople make, the more money you make, which is kind of a nice feedback loop. It's not nice to have team members on a really high bonus all the time or a really high base all the time because it creates a risk for the business. So the purpose of a bonus is to create revenue at risk, which essentially is only unlocked when they unlock value for the business. So it de-risks you. That's why some people, you really find out who your great team members are when, a proportion of their wage/salary is based on a performance metric because they got to work. So it's a great way to protect yourself. When you're paying a team member, in the back of your mind, you might be going, flip, I'm just added an expense to my business. That's a risk. How do you de-risk it? Cut it in half, incentivize the other half. And again, you've got to work with that because again, I think from a sales perspective that sometimes salespeople who are on commission only, that can be very risky because the quality of leads might be really poor and they might not make sales. So you've got to factor in some stuff that's outside your control and then come up with an agreeable figure between your team. So those are really important things. But the ultimate goal is to keep the company healthy, lean, and resourced. And if the company's not healthy, lean, and resourced, then you've got liabilities in it. But the biggest mistakes that people are making when it comes to hiring are, one, not doing it quick enough. Two, not being clear on the role, what it feels like, the key number, the communication cycle. And three, is not really keeping people accountable to strong onboarding, culture onboarding, and being very clear on what the role actually looks like. I think it's very easy to hire somebody, bring them in and just go, here, you fix it, versus actually bring them up to skill with, here's the company, here's the customer, here's our numbers, here's what we need you to do. And that's very much, when you're sitting with your partners or your other team members, bring them in on that other role. Like, what do you feel we need here? Because you're going to have blind spots because you're so focused in one area. So bringing in other people to actually help you shape out and flesh out that role, so the expectation is very, very clear, is critical. And then documenting, once that role has been done, get them to document their role as they go. So for example, I said the James Smith playbook of, how I like to travel, how I like to this and that. Well, one role I would give your VA is to create a playbook for every new scenario that we come across. So, James is going to do seminars. Okay, what's right? You first of all talk them through it. You send this email. These are the pricing options. These are the follow-up options. This is where, this is my prerequisites, what I need. Can you please create a 5 to 10 bullet point playbook now of this and store it inside the master folder so that it's there? And the reason why you do that may sound mental and over just a bit like over the top. But if they ever were to fall out of the business, they were to leave, they were to do something wrong, you had to get rid of them, you then got this library of 1, 2, 3s for somebody else to pick up. And that's a simple matter of, hey, welcome to the role. Here's all the stuff, how it feels like, the results and whatever. You've got 5 days to work through the playbooks. And then I want you to come back to me with any questions, and I'm going to quiz you on the playbooks. So they have to study them. So you then get somebody that's just installed the software on how to run your life. And it does take time to build that, but it is worth it. If you ever find yourself repeating yourself in business more than twice, more than 3 times, more than 4 times, it needs documented. And you can do even very simple stuff like, here's a quick 3-minute loom, create a rule, 3-minute rule run through, right? What needs to happen? What are the beliefs behind it? What are the key action steps? Done. Record, bank, label it clearly. So you can create a very, very simple overview of systems. But if the business is solely reliant upon you, you're trapped in it. And it's solely reliant on your energy and mood. And, those are some really core fundamentals around hiring. There are people out there that can do it better than you. Your time is better spent elsewhere than doing all those little micro tasks that add up. You just don't see them. And now that you've got a kid coming into the world, time is of the essence. Building a team is an art and a science. And like I always say, you've got to mentor and build the team. Steve Jobs didn't build the iPhone. His team did. Build the team and the team build the business. So in summary, it's worth spending time carving out those roles, communicating, mentoring, and training the team to eventually then get them autonomous and boom. So as you get deeper into a team role, you need less and less and less time mentoring and training them, because the expectations and needs of the business remain pretty much the same unless you're doing a drastic pivot. And I think that's worth it for, 3 to 6 months of a year to build that out. So any questions around that or any insights, or hope that makes sense?
No, that's good. Yeah, it's not just hiring the person. You got to do your own work to make sure that hire is worth it. And it probably just means, but you don't have to do the work more than once. So I like the idea of the playbook. I'm going to
work hard once and it's done.
Yeah.
And I think I'm little upkeeps.
Try to get better at that delegation. And yeah, if it doesn't work, I'll come knocking, Phil. I'll say you were wrong over our next cigar. Oh.
Class. Right. Any other questions on that?
No, that's pretty good. That's the one thing where I've always wanted to pick someone's brain like yourself on, what it is that you need to cover off when hiring someone. And That's great.
A couple of things in that. You don't need a massive team. Small, tight, lean, ultra profitable. You know, it's almost like people boasting how many followers they've got. Oh, I've got a team of 100. Well, nobody cares, right? You know, do not over resource the business, because if you experience a period of a downturn or bad sales, or your ad account gets shut off, and that's one of the beautiful things why your organic is so important, because if that ad account goes down, you've just you're going to choke the business, especially if it's loaded up with liabilities of loads of team, people spending money on lifestyle, etc., that haven't got the right financial discipline in place. You can implode a business pretty damn quick. So, you know, don't over resource it. Lean, resourceful, and impactful. So, yeah. All right. Remember this: every time you hire, it's a gift to yourself. That's how I look at hiring. When I hire someone, I'm getting back my time, I'm getting back my energy to go and do fun shit or to go and make more money. And that's how I live.
I saw someone say that online. They say, if you think that buying yourself a nice car is nice, try getting yourself a fucking assistant or
Love
do
it.
both.
Love it. Love it.